Oh, welcome, Mike, to Big Content. Make sure you are in the Discord. That's where you could ask us questions. That's where we're talking about content at all times. And subscribe to the channel if you're new. I actually wanted to start off with this little piece of text that I was going to tweet, but I didn't. I want you to guess how many videos I have posted on YouTube in my lifetime. Just on our channel, this includes fantasy videos, this includes vlogs, this includes live streams as well.
How many years? 7? 6, 7?
I think my first ever video was like 2015, so 8 maybe.
Oof. Okay. Not counting TikTok.
Just on our YouTube channel right now.
Not shorts.
Not shorts either, I don't think.
Full feature films as you create.
Yes.
I would guess 8 years. There's 365 days. It's, I guess you probably just crossed 1,000 recently. You got into I would say, a more often cadence. I think people underestimate, like, if you take 60 days off, what that does to the average per year, which I would imagine you probably, like in 15, 16, 17, you probably went at least, I mean, you don't vacation because you're a grinder, but there were probably stretches of time. So that drops the average down. So yeah, I'm going to go with 1,032.
2,359. If you divide that by if you divide that by 365, that is 6.46 years of posting pretty much every single day.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wanted to go look at that, but
wait, so when were you posting daily?
We post daily now. We basically post daily now. I would say,
but you just said basically. Like, that's what I'm saying. That is literally pretty much posting every single day.
I think if we looked on our channel right now, I don't know when the last day we missed was, but like yesterday, I had a video go up at noon, and then I live streamed an underdog draft at night. So there will be days that I go 2 a week.
Live.
I said, if you go back and watch the video, what I said, yeah.
What'd you say?
I said
how many times we posted?
How many times we posted? I said that includes fantasy football stuff, vlogs, and live streams. Everything we've ever done. So there are days that we have multiple.
When you started 15, let's say 15,
2015,
16?
I did not post every day.
Right.
No.
But was it was more than once a week? You were that consistent?
Probably not then, but once I hit later on, I might have been posting probably two a day for some period of time. Whatever it was, that's what the fun. And this is on the channel, so this is not only just me. This will include shows that were not just me. This will include, and that's probably give or take like 100 maybe of just like unlisted things.
And that doesn't count shorts?
I don't think so. But either way, shorts is such a small. If you could take maybe 150 shorts off there, still north of 2,000.
Okay.
But just the point I want to get across here is like the amount of videos that I've made in my time on YouTube. Like, I've made a lot.
Yeah,
I made a lot.
Well,
That's
you've done your 10,000
years,
hours.
Correct.
The craziest part is, we had a conversation before this, and it feels like you're like just learning YouTube as well.
I feel like I'm just hitting my stride right now in
like,
terms of like Matt knowing
like
what's
you haven't
important.
even optimized for good titles, good thumbs until the last 24 months.
Imagine I was good at it.
Right.
Imagine I was good at it for the last fucking 10 years.
Yeah.
Damn. All right. Yeah. I was just thinking about it. I was like, holy shit, we put a lot of work into it. But
I want to tie it back to our conversation around what platform would you start on? Does that data info give you anything like in that conversation? Like, is there any takeaway where you're like, all right, I'm way more convinced now that I wouldn't even attack YouTube because look, I've been doing it for this long and I'm only here? Or is it you could get better at it quicker than me now because there's more information? Like, what's your takeaway?
I think there's give and take there. I still think the way that I thought about it, last week and the week before that is definitely still like the amount of work I've put in just to get to where I am. Yeah. And it's not very far on YouTube relative to people that have taken it far is one way to look at it. You could definitely go further in a shorter amount of time, given the fact that like I can now teach you how to make better thumbnails, better titles, how to optimize for more popular types of content. But I think that if you did the same amount of videos now for the next 7 years, actually, I don't know. I don't know where it would take you. That's a high quantity.
I feel like you're almost the human to what artificial intelligence is. It's like you compiled a bunch of data for 7 years, but now
except for not working on it exponentially, like except for not getting better exponentially.
No, but you did. But
I
the
guess.
beauty of AI is now the efficiency of like I can now sit in your office and in an hour pick up on 20% of that work in 1 hour.
Yeah.
And I think that's just life. Is
Yeah.
like people are just gonna get more efficient because they can take that data.
I just don't want it to get lost on people about just how much work we put in,
Yeah.
like behind the scenes, in order to get to the spot that we are. So when we're having these opinions and these conversations, it is from a sample size of doing it so many fucking times.
Yeah.
Also, you know what's bullshit with AI? Everyone talks about how it gets better exponentially. Like ChatGPT does not get better ever. Like it's the same. It's literally
It still cannot go pre-2021.
people underestimate just how much. Like exponential means you are like 50 times better in the course of like 5 days.
No, that's not true.
Exponential.
It doesn't.
I'm not
mean
talking
in
about
5 days.
multiplier. It should add something. Should be
That's
better.
what you want it to be, but
No, that's what exponential
if
is.
it exponentially gets better over the course of a year, something that it's taken 100 years to do, that is exponentially better. You're just from the TikTok generation. You want everything so quick.
Oh yeah. No, because if we have the product built out over the course of the year, ChatGPT in 1 year should be a billion times better than it is right now.
What's to say it won't be?
Because it's fucking been around for a year already, and it sucks.
We've been
Sucks
using it for 3
popsicle
months.
sticks, brother.
No, I agree. I'm with you.
I'm just saying, like, everyone's always like, it gets better exponentially. I'm like, I haven't seen a real tool actually
It's like
get better
Bijan.
on its own exponentially.
It's like Bijan.
In what
It's
capacity?
the hype. It's the hype. Like realistically, what's the ceiling?
I've
In
used
year one.
a few tools that are awesome, but the only improvements that have ever been made to these tools are literally just man-made tools that are like, we're improving the system that we like. AI ain't doing shit by itself. It's fucking stupid.
You're fading AI. All right.
I'm out on
Since
AI.
this
for sure.
is my show, I set the agenda, and our first topic today is bringing in new talent. So we are actively looking for new talent, not necessarily in the way that you would have thought. Yours is, you've spoken about, more traditional. We are looking in a completely different route. But umbrella theme is when you're looking for new talent, what are you looking for? Compensation. How much is it going to cost you? Abilities, work ethic. How do you find the person? What are they going to do for your company? You're bringing in new talent. You can share that if you would like.
I kind of want to attack this like 2 ways to make sure it goes back to people who are trying to be full-time content creators, to make sure we give them value first. And the first Q&A that I tackled in tomorrow's Q&A video, by the time you guys watch this, I think it'll be last week's, but someone asked like, what's your advice for people working full-time that are also putting in, you know, the 25 hours a week on content? My first thing was like, maybe change your mindset about like building a business around. My first thing was like, if you're spending 25 hours putting out video content on YouTube, maybe think about putting out that content on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, because if you're reverse engineering what you want your life to be, a full-time content creator, it's not to build, like, I think we've both came to the conclusion that building an audience on TikTok and YouTube Shorts easier, but it doesn't convert to like B2C. Like selling to consumers is hard. However, I think a good way to look at it might be
B2B.
You'll build your personal brand quicker, and then you can get hired as a content creator. For this person, I was like, rather than spending 25 hours on YouTube, put that same amount of time into TikTok, and you'll grow. Instead of 10 subscribers a week on YouTube, starting from 0, which is probably like a realistic thing, maybe you might grow 100 subscribers a week on TikTok. You'll build your personal brand way quicker, and then you can get hired by a content company. And while that might not be your end goal, you might still want to make a business out of yourself. Your life is now far more fucking aligned. You know what I mean? So I think that might be a realistic goal. And again, not going to come quick. It might take a year, 2 years, 3 years to get noticed by these full-time things, but it's going to take you way longer to become a full-time creator.
For sure.
Just trying to do that by yourself. So I think that's one thing just to combine here. Creator, think about your life as like a holistic viewpoint and see how you can actually fit the other pieces of your life, whether it's taking a part-time job to supplement your content path, or looking at it from, you know, instead of like the conversion you're trying to close on TikTok being like selling a product to the customer, make it like trying to make Jack notice you or me notice you or something like that in order to get hired. So when we're looking at talent, that's what I'm looking for. People who are taking the smart path. And it obviously depends on what job you're trying to fill. We're trying to fill basically 2 jobs right now, where someone on the tech side of things and someone in the content creation space. And this previous weekend, we had a group of people come out. We had 4 people fly out from around the country that have either been in my network that I'd hope to work with in the future, or already doing work for us. Like Noah does videos for us, so he flew out, and I used this weekend as like kind of like a bonding trip, a chemistry measuring, but also like a recruiting trip in a sense. So one of my first things that I'm trying to look for is the chemistry between the team, and making sure that, because I want anyone kind of joining the team, especially in the content space, to be in-house, I need to make sure that we can all kind of like work together, and that we all fit together, and that the personalities gel, and that I can make content with you if I need to, but I also trust you to be able to make content by yourself. So this was in the same way of like dating. It's like you got to make sure that you want them as much as they want you, and vice versa. It's not just like people get nervous on first dates, or they get nervous in interviews because they just feel like, I hope this person likes me. But it's like, you have to make sure that you like this person as well, because you're investing a lot into them. So when I'm looking for things, I think a lot of things can be molded. I think a lot of things can be gelled. A lot of things can be taught. But there's like the, I guess, it factor, but work ethic, passion, the fact that you've done it over a long period of time makes me know that you're going to continue doing it. You're doing it for the right reasons. So I guess stuff like that is where I could start.
Okay. I just want to clear up what you were talking about. It's how our framework for the agency is level 1, level 2, right? Okay. And I think that what we talk a lot about is level 2 and selling product to your audience. But I think that getting to level 1, 0 to 1, is what you're speaking about there, which is totally a viable path. And sometimes going and working for that company will then even grow your brand even more, and then you can separate and do that level 2 thing. I think like McAfee did it with Barstool. Mm-hmm. Like that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, exactly.
He was a content creator, fit into the network, fit into the ecosystem. It built him up, and then when it was time,
when he was in the NFL, because he left the NFL to start doing stuff at Barstool, was he already doing a podcast on the side while he was in the NFL?
I'm not sure.
Okay, because that would be like kind of what I was referring to, because the question came in from someone in the Discord that was like, I'm already working 40 hours a week full time, and I'm assuming that was not in like the sports media industry. So it's almost like you start doing that on the side, but why not try to take baby steps in order to make your life, like if you want to take your life here, you're not going to go from here straight there. You're going to have to take like steps in order to get there. The first step, I think, would be aligning the parts that suck the most energy out of you, and for sure that's going to be the 40-hour week full-time job. Yeah. If you work in a creation space or a media company or whatever, you're going to learn a lot of things that you wouldn't have unless you took that really long path to get there. You'll be around other people that will give you good ideas, energize you, inspire you. So I think taking that jump, like, it might not be the end goal for you, but it's a path along the way. And I think, Pat McAfee going to become the biggest creator in terms of just like being paid by a network, he took baby steps to get there. He went to Barstool first, then he did his own thing, and now he's, whatever the case may be. So I think about it more holistically, like your life is just puzzles and you're putting pieces together.
Yeah. Do you think that, so the comp part of the conversation, right? So someone has that it factor, they're a superstar, they have maybe a pre-existing following. Is there a price for you at this point in time where there's obviously a price that's non-negotiable? Like, we cannot pay someone $1 million in cash. Maybe you can, I can't. But equity and rev share, and there's always like ways to you, is there a number that you're like, yeah, for the right person, I would stretch and make that bet? Or is it like non-negotiable for you?
Okay, so I don't think non-negotiable is necessarily, I guess it depends on, is the position something that we need versus something that we want? Right. If it's something that we need, I'll give you an example for the person that we're looking to bring on the tech side of things. The conversation, albeit I already know him very well, like we've been friends for quite a while. I'm like, I want to bring you on the team. And the first thing I asked him basically when we had the serious conversation was, listen, I've already kind of made up my mind. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to bring you on. Mm-hmm. I need you to just be honest with me and give me the lowest number that I can hit in order for this to work. Like, just trying to be transparent. Yeah. And I think I know him well enough that he's not going to be like, this is the number, let me tell Nick 15 grand higher or something like that. And he gave me the number, and I was like, I'll give you an extra, 7,500 on top of that, for the salary, whatever the case may be. That's the way I would look at it for that. If I want someone that I think is going to be like a game changer, I'm willing to put it all out there. That being said too, like, I am willing to put all my money back. I'd rather pay, that person's going to make way more than I am personally. And I'm perfectly fine with that, because my goals, I don't care about making money because there's nothing in my life right now that I'm saving up for that I feel like I need money in order to spend it on. I'm more like, okay, I like living in New York. As long as I can pay my rent and hang out here, whatever, I'm cool with that. With the other person who, if you're going to be a full-time content creator, the offer I would give them is going to be way less, I might still have the same conversation with them. I might say like, what's the lowest amount that you would take to be willing to work here, and see where they come up with that. I might offer something that I think is reasonable, but because for this tech person, I don't think there's a ton that we can offer them on the tech side that's like, this replaces the value.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'll try to explain that. Content side, right? This person, if I had the conversations with them, and their goal is to become a full-time content creator on their own, okay? So for me, that is a good and a bad thing. It's like good because it's going to be hard to get you to buy into the vision of BDG long-term, and you're kind of like a mercenary in your own right. Good for us in the sense that we can offer you a lot of things outside of just monetary value. Yeah. Like, who better to learn from than
distribution?
We have all the equipment here. We have the energy. We have the brainstorming. We already have all the knowledge of 2,500 videos that we put out to teach you how to become better. And I'm also literally someone who's taken the exact path that you want to go down. Like, who better to actually learn from? So we can offer them value. We can come in a little bit lower, or even like industry standard. Whereas if he gets the same offer from another company, I'm 100% sure we beat out that company because of the intangible things that we can offer them. That's why I'm thinking about it. So depending on how much leverage you have in the conversation, how much value you can offer that person outside of just money, you approach it differently. I think the more significant conversations and offers you have, I think the more transparent and conversational you are with the person, the better those things go down. And I think a lot of the times it goes far in those higher level conversations. If you do have a number and being like, we can't get anywhere above this, but like, how can we make, what else is more valuable to you? Like, how can we make it up in other aspects or avenues or whatever the case may be? So it's very subjective, just figuring out like what works for each person, I guess.
Okay. And how do you think about your equity? Because it sounds like you would rather continue to invest your money, right, versus taking money off the table, which is essentially what paying higher salaries or paying guaranteed cash over giving equity. But you're not as concerned with like,
I'd give up equity. I would 100%, especially to the person that I think is going to help us actually get
what
somewhere
is that
far.
person getting with equity if you're not necessarily thinking about an exit or trying to monetize that equity?
The more I've thought about I am looking at our business more as like I don't want to exit, but like I am
as an entity.
I want to set it up so that we are in a space that if we ever come to that spot, or if we need to raise money, that is, because the same thing, if you take equity in a company, I believe any point of financial investment, people have the option to cash out.
I don't know if that's necessary.
I'm not really sure either, to be honest with you.
I don't think so, because most people, when they're raising money, it's to use the cash.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Actually, I don't think that's the
there are probably
different type of stocks or options, I think, that do.
Yeah.
I think if you sell, whatever the case may be, but the conversations I've had are geared more towards like, I think let's set this up to be something that we can pivot off of sell.
There's whatever. Also, I think, in this big bubble of like raising money, equity, all that stuff, there's also, if you set it up in a way that people were genuine partners, right, and they own 10%.
This is how I'm looking at it.
If you made $1 million in profit, like, they could be entitled to 10% of profits.
That depends on how you set up the equity.
But I'm saying, like, that's a model where you don't actually have to sell the company, but you could, like, if someone owns a pizza shop and the pizza shop makes $100 and you're a 10% investor, like, the pizza shop, you're not investing in that pizza shop for a 10x exit. Like, it's not a growth stock, you know, it's not a tech company. You're investing because if the pizza shop makes $1 million a year, you're going to bring home $100,000. Well, which in the media space is not normally.
I don't think that's not necessarily true unless you have, like, if you're getting
ownership.
No. So one of the reasons that we converted from an LLC to a C Corp is if you're an LLC, you can't give away equity, but you can provide people with a sort of equity in rev share. Like, that's how that would work. Like, you don't own necessarily 20% of the company, but you will make 20% of the yearly revenue. And that's the way you look at it. But I think when you take the equity, you are buying into a long-term thing. Cause you're like, you have to vest for like 4 years typically.
But that's what I'm saying. Some shares, yes, it's vesting and it is on an exit, but there are some ownership shares where after, you know, revenue, expenses, taxes are paid, there could be a withdrawal. Like, there could be an owner's draw of $1 million. And after all those things, if you took $1 million, and that could be after you decide, okay, we don't need to get a new office. We don't need to hire a new employee, right? This is a profit owner's draw that isn't going to be reinvested those people could then make money from it. It's just I didn't really think about it like that, especially in a media company. You are thinking more like exit on multiples and stuff versus being profitable, but good businesses are profitable and they're back in style.
Yeah, sure. I think like overall, I don't want to get like too deep into this because I don't think either of us are like expertise in this, so we just might be babbling on. But the way I'm looking at equity at this point is like I am completely fine giving up chunks of equity, because if that equity ends up, you could look at it and be like, oh, you gave away like 7% equity. Right. Like if you guys cash out at $100 million, that's like $7 million. You gave up $7 million. I'm like, yeah, but if we cash out $100 million, like, you know how much money I just made right there?
So that's a funny thought, because, you know, I've had that thought, but the new thought is we're not getting to 100 million unless we're compensating that person with the equity. Meaning, I don't have the cash to give you, right, so that you will go do this job. I believe that by compensating you in equity, you're going to go do this job. That's how we comp you. And our company that's worth 10 million won't be worth 100 million unless we hire this person, work with this person, and they're going to make it. So then that's how.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine giving up whatever. I don't give a fuck at this point.
All right, I want 20% of the company. Next thing, what are you seeing in the market right now? So you're talking about this idea of a 0 to 1 creator going and working for a company, and marketing has slowed, and I think hiring of creators have slowed, and it's all this trickle-down effect. Is when layoffs happen, less jobs are available, less dollars are available, everyone has tightened their budget for spend. So what are you seeing? You're a company that, you know, you lock into just a couple, you know, kind of long-term deals, and you're maybe less reliant on outside partnerships or advertising, stuff like that. But what's your general sense in the creator market?
I think the creator market is following closely with the actual overall economy, where it's like we had this boom of everything is awesome, everybody's getting deals. I mean, the marketing spend in these companies was crazy because they were raising a lot of money, so they had a lot of money to spend. For the most part, I think that dried up. Didn't really dry up for us personally, so I guess I can't really speak to it on like an individual content, but we had a couple partners that like their budget went down and we stopped working with them because I'm like, we're worth this right now, and they're like, we only have this budget. I'm like, not worth it for either side at this point, so we'll kind of get out of there. Right. And if you're not working with companies that are giving you like 6-figure deals and you are kind of scraping off these like $500 deal here, $1,500 deal here, those dried up pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And it's very easy to probably get in the mindset of like, fuck, you know, like things are not going to get back to the norm, but they will. But it might take a year or 2 years. Yeah. This is the time to like persevere through that, build your brand, make sure you're still putting out everything high quality, because when that money comes back into play, you will be the first person that's compensated correctly for that. That's kind of the way I'm thinking about the market. It's always been the way is the under promise, over deliver. You always have to have that mindset, especially in a time like right now where it's just real life. Like you might have to supplement your life with getting a part-time job. Yeah, shit like that. So I guess that's kind of the way I'm seeing the market. Is it the same for you?
Yeah, I definitely think so. From the agency, I think we get a little data that would back that up. NBA Finals are this week. A couple brands are spending and activating, but last year there were 20 brands activating and spending. Same thing we saw, you know, I would say since Super Bowl, it's been kind of a downward trajectory. All-Star brands were definitely spending, but it was a little less. There's still going to be those brands spending. Now is going to be a time of, all right, are the brands pivoting to just taking a $50,000 budget, slapping it to one creator who's going to do really awesome for them? Or are they going to try and be very particular and convert on every creator that they're working with? So maybe
What have you seen?
I think it's probably a mix. From what I've seen is like,
I think if the companies that have found the bigger creators that they know will help them scale and actually like push numbers, there's no reason, like if you could work with one brand or creator that's going to get you, you know, a million views or 10,000 signups or something like that, rather than trying to get 20 that will get you 500 each, way easier for you as a company to get that. Obviously it's harder to find, but like those, I think in a time like now where everybody's kind of being exposed for not being maybe good or a converter, it makes the top of the really top level talent that much more valuable. Yeah. You know, so that's why if you push through now and you become one of those top level people, the next time this shit hits around, you will kind of cash in. But I'd imagine that companies cut their spending, and usually the ones who are just not performing are the ones that get cut, which is, you know, the top level ones might only be the ones that kind of make it out of here.
I think a really good example of that is Mr. Beast. His most recent video did like 60 million in 24 hours.
Good creator or no?
Yeah, he's on YouTube. He's done like 2,200 videos.
I only do
great.
TikTok, so I wouldn't know.
He did a Shopify. So Shopify launched their Shop app, and he did a really creative ad read within. And I would say 12 months ago, the amount of brands that would have had budget to advertise and activate within a Mr. Beast video, maybe it was 100. Now it's probably only 5. But for those brands that can, he's so good at it that there's probably this weird, like, there's only 5 people, but those 5 know that he's going to fucking convert like crazy. Like, the Shop app went to number, I think it was like 7 in the App Store overnight, which is like...
What is that? What is the Shop
Shopify's app?
I mean, they already had an app.
From the consumer standpoint. So anyone who shops on Shopify, like anyone who has a Shopify storefront, they're like, I guess they're could replace Amazon in like some fashion.
Okay. That's kind of cool, actually.
But he did a 2-minute ad read, but while the video is going on, which is what he's so good at. And then he took like, I think they were playing like Jenga, and he took a block of Jenga, put it in the store for 99 cents. And they're collector's items, which are being auctioned for $50 on eBay. Like, it's this whole ecosystem, knowing that even at that price tag, he's going to convert and deliver for your brand.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're saying. So it's this weird thing where there's only so many brands that probably could afford that, but those 3 brands are really fighting and duking it out because they know it'll work. If not him, then they got to split their budget down. So I think you're seeing it's probably that mid-level creator who's getting hurt.
Yeah, that's why my advice would just be to, like, if you're not in that stage, if you're not the higher level in your industry or your niche or whatever, you have no choice but to just push through until the economy kind of gets back. So continue to focus on good content, as you always should be doing. The money's not going to be here, but it will be here in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. And if you're in the content game forever, like, that's the way you should be looking at it. You're going to make good content regardless of what's going on with the economy. So it's like, just continue to do that. Yeah,
it's a question of, do you need to play to the economy or do you continue doing your thing? That, I think, is, once again, it's a self-awareness thing. It's a realistic
And this is also why, as a creator, you want to own your pipeline and own a product, because when stuff like that does dry up, even if you're not making a ton off your product, it will supplement those $1,000 deals, right? You might plug your own product or your own info product or whatever.
I would imagine those products take a hit as well, though.
They will from a smaller scale, but you'd be surprised, like, if you built a brand, people will still buy your shit.
And I think that's the biggest thing. You can almost, let's say you are a creator who left your job, went full time, market hits. Now you're kind of like, oh shit, like the projections and what I expected isn't here. I actually think you can draw, if you've delivered enough value, you can draw on your audience, being like, hey, I'm out of a job. I offer this really great product. Here's why I am offering at this price. Like, I want to continue doing this and delivering value back to you, and you guys are essentially the brand.
Yeah, and I think the stuff that stops getting sold, or the stuff that is not powered by a brand, like all the graphic tees and stuff like that, are like the first things to go, because no one that you care about is selling them to you. In the same way that, like, Pat McAfee, the economy's down, they'll pay him $100 million. Who's the one that what's the product that gets cut? All the people that don't have necessarily personal brands. It's the same way I think with products and selling the products. I think you selling your personal brand will never, because people are not necessarily buying the product, they're just buying the personal brand. Of course, you'll see like a little bit of a dip because people need to be a little bit wiser with spending their money. But I think overall, like, if you've built up the personal brand, you'll probably be okay selling. All
right. So last topic was actually based off of that last conversation, and it's brand versus conversion. So we work in a space where a lot of our brand partners are actually focused on conversion. How many brand plays would you say you do? How do you think about them? And when you can't, and when you can't really track the data.
You mean brand as in like a company comes to you and you're
I'm talking both. So how do you think about working with a brand that isn't necessarily focused on conversion? And then is there stuff you do in your company that doesn't like connect the dots immediately? So for example, your trivia game, that just adds audience. It's a brand play. You grow audience. I think in the back end, you're like, we'll sell them this product or we'll advertise against them.
Yeah.
When we are going to, like when we did our Super Bowl event, that was really our first big brand play. It was like, we're going to activate at Super Bowl, get a guest, do all this stuff. we're not like, we sold tickets just for a head count, but we're not making money from it, and we're not having sponsors activate on it. So it was really to just like grow the brand. Do you think about that stuff, or is everything you do think more about conversion down the line?
Ironically, I guess I'll look at it from like sponsorships and affiliates.
Yeah.
I thought working with companies on more of a branding play would be better, and I actually don't like it that much.
It's impossible to measure.
It's impossible to measure, yes.
Yeah.
And I think while that leaves you open to be more like creative and whatever, it does kind of leave you with like a little bit of a less fulfilling type of feeling. For instance, we work with Mojo, who operates legally as a sports book, but they're only legalized for people to play in New Jersey. Right. And that's cool. It's easy for us to just make content and be like, okay, we don't have to plug a promo code, we don't have to do anything. But it also de-incentivizes like a community around the product, because we're not actually pushing people to get onto the product. We're just making people aware of it. And the very bunch of first few conversations we had with them was like, we're partnering with you guys strictly as a brand awareness play. We're not trying to drive people to it, but and this could be like specific to them because they weren't legalized in other states, so it's hard to, I guess, pinpoint it here. But there would be sometimes it kind of felt like we were just yelling into the void because a lot of people couldn't actually like play it. So brand awareness, I think, is cool, and I think that's probably something you just need to have as a bigger company because you can't put everything into direct response. But I think in terms of like advertising for a company, I prefer direct response. I think it's easier. I think it's more trackable. I think there's a very finite path from like A to B. Here's the content. Here's the outcome that I want to have, rather than just like yelling at it. In terms of making content for us personally, I think everything that we do for branding, if it's specifically for branding, I think it's to like just build brand loyalty with the personalities within the office. Like our vlogs have absolutely no money or conversion tied to it, but I know that those vlogs will help us, if we want to do a live event, bring 12 people to that live event, right? So everything I think of with branding is more of a long-term conversion play. Like I know that will help.
It is a conversion down.
It is. It's a down-the-line conversion play. Like those trivia games, like yes, we're not plugging anything in those trivia games, but guess what? Now that we should have actually talked about this earlier, looking for interns for the summer, 1 or 2 interns. When we plug that into the beginning of the TikTok video, we're going to have 100 applications like that because we didn't ask for anything. All branding stuff, people fell in love with that stuff. Now we can ask for whatever we want. Also on top of that,
by the way, you're still offering like an amazing opportunity. It's not like you're even like Ike's Lunch, you monetized with the merch. That was the long-term plan.
Well, I was going to say, like with the trivia stuff, like we're building out the capability of people to play with us on our website. In order for them to play with us, they'll have to give us their email, and then they get onto the email list, and then eventually we'll try to sell them products, whatever. So it's always kind of a long-term play, and you should be looking at linking all of these things up. But I think the beautiful thing about doing branding things is like it'll eventually take care of itself. You don't necessarily have to have the knowledge of what you're going to do with it up front. You don't need to be like, okay, I haven't started putting out content yet. I want to start putting out good content, but how do I map it to like what I'm selling? You don't have to do that right away, because if you do branding correctly, you'll still be able to link it at the end, because that's how you build up like loyalty. So when you do finally try to sell something or match it to something else, people will be ready for that. But if you start with the direct response to selling, you automatically kind of like deflate and ruin your brand off the rip.
Yeah.
So branding is like, I wouldn't take it like too seriously. Like you have to do it well, but I wouldn't take like the back end part of it selling, seriously, because you could always figure that out later.
Yeah. And I think that is where I enjoy working in this space, having my own company, being able to kind of set the vision, not having investors to necessarily answer to, because I think sometimes they struggle. And when you're a corporate company and costs have to be cut and revenues have to be disclosed and all these things kind of have to happen on a certain timeline, that stuff gets rushed. So if you say we're
can't rush brand.
Exactly.
Cannot.
And I think like Mojo is another great example. Initially, they want to do a big branding play, and then post, they're like, oh, our investors really want us to start bringing in real players. And that kind of shifts the focus. And now everything has changed. I'm definitely in the same boat with you of like the dream is to do a brand play, but the reality is actually like it kind of sucks to a degree because you can't measure it. And what's a success? And I think like
you think it was better because you think it's like, oh, it's easier because like
we'll
do whatever we want and they can't yell at you.
Right,
it just doesn't feel right. I don't know. It feels weird.
No, like our conversation with Amazon was, are we in charge of helping people just be aware of Thursday Night Football on Prime, or actually driving Prime subs? And like for us, we thought our reaction was going to be, oh, we want them to say it's just, make people aware because it feels easier, and there's nothing that they can really measure. They could do some surveys, but it's not going to give you the full picture. And that was their answer. And now we're like, I feel like it'd be easier to just measure, are we driving people to the fucking platform? But some things transcend. And I think think of a company like FanDuel, right? They have the highest market share. Of course, they're going to have the nerds figuring out what their CAC is, cost of acquisition, and all that stuff. Cost of customer acquisition. Cost of acquisition.
I'm not sure what
CAC
is.
Yeah, it's something like that. But losing Pat McAfee, right, has now, their brand has taken a significant hit, in my opinion. Something that's immeasurable. Something that, yes, you could measure it on the back end eventually when the numbers all come to fruition, but I think that there's probably that intangible value that you were talking about before of working for your brand that maybe some companies are missing out on because of all the corporate structure. Do you ever feel that way?
You're saying corporate companies miss out on talent and stuff sometimes because of that?
Maybe they just miss out on how they value certain things because they're not measuring what it actually means to the overall brand.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of companies are not aligned with what brand means because brand is very hard to calculate, but it's easy to feel. Yeah. You know what I mean? Brand is like the story of what your company is and how you got to where you are, and do people care and believe in that story? And if you don't have that, it's very hard to capture market share. So of course, all companies are missing out on opportunities, whether it's talent or revenue or the ability to sell or connect with their customers or have a feedback loop with their customers. It's kind of all encompassing with the company. It's not all evident at first, but when you tell the story correctly, I think you have people, anyone that buys into the story will feel this connection or love for you, that they want to help you out. They want to continue. When you tell them the beginning of the story, they also want to help you write the middle and the end of the story, right. So it's they feel attached, they feel part of the story. And when you're not telling it, there's nothing to really feel attached to. So people who operate just off numbers and revenue, I think, they're definitely leaving a lot on the table.
I think Fanatics is doing a half-assed but also a really good job of building their brand. It's weird. It's they're doing the business stuff. They dominate the business stuff, but they need the brand, and they are investing.
Tell me when you say that, when you're I think the Fanatics is doing well as a brand. What comes to your mind? Why? What's their brand?
So their premier. Well, that's the thing. I don't think they have one because they were essentially a B2B business or B2C, but didn't care about this. Not didn't care. It was just a very transactional relationship was their brand. You came for the best product in sports and you got it through a Fanatics experience. Now they're building a brand where they have the access to the NFL rookie premiere, right? And then Michael Rubin hosts that breakfast with Tom and all the rookie quarterback. So they are building brand and his parties, but
I was about to say right there, I don't think people understand how powerful that, the CEO.
Yeah.
Most people don't really know. If your CEO builds out a personal brand, that personal brand becomes the brand of the company in a way.
So when I say half-ass isn't the right way to go about it, because actually
the story of Mark Rubin becomes the story of Fanatics.
Michael Rubin.
Sorry.
He's not doing that good of a job.
What did I say?
Mark Rubin. No, but this is my point. Half-assed is not the right word. I don't know if I agree with the brand they're building because they are investing. The white party he throws, the Super Bowl party he throws, every podcast he goes on, owning the Sixers, being friends with James Harden and Embiid. And he's done a tremendous job of building that personal brand. I get very concerned with what is the relatability, right, of that brand. So you're going to start a collectibles company, you're going to start a sports book, and my fear is people are betting against you. And when the prices of your cards go up, it's because your owner has positioned himself as this wealthy person who only kind of connects with the other wealthiest people, and his relationships are the top tier athlete. So the brand is cool, but it's almost unattainable.
My point was but the brand. He's actually building a brand, whereas it feels like most of these companies are very robotic. Right. Just knowing who is the person in charge of the brand makes them that much more relatable. Right. Now, what you do with it is the delta.
That's the thing is I think there's 3 levels. It's the first level, which is a company who hasn't built any brand, right? Which is why there's no brand loyalty. Then there's the company that's done it, but maybe hasn't perfected it. Then they've got the perfect company. And Apple has built this brand that even with being the most valuable company in the world and having the most cash in the world, the way they speak about their products is inspire change and inspire creativity. And like it, even though the product is very expensive, they've done an incredible job.
That's actually a super interesting use case, because I would say like they don't really have a ton of like personal brand, but they're extremely private.
Extremely.
But their product is just like
it
unbelievably
inspires
deniable.
That.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And Fanatics, their product is actually, they're going to create this ecosystem potentially that could give off the same like dominance of you sports bet here, you collect here, and you buy your merch here. And this is where the sports fan comes.
Yeah.
But sports fans are so passionate, and the majority of sports fans aren't sitting courtside at games. They don't know the athletes. They actually look at these people like role models. They actually they drink beers on Sundays and they scream into the abyss. And it's like, is that relationship, does it feel like it's with the audience? So
I guess I would like say I listen to Gary Vee, obviously. I've been a big follower of him.
Yeah.
He runs VaynerMedia, which is a massive marketing company. I would say probably makes a fuckload of money and brings in a ton of clients because people know who he is from his personal brand.
Yeah.
He does a podcast called Props and Drops with Matt Kalish, who is the CEO of DraftKings, I think. Just hearing, and I've listened to the podcast, and I was like, I like this guy. Like, he's cool. I like DraftKings now more than FanDuel, right? And I would use them over that because I feel like he has a personality. And everyone has a personality, but he's showing his personality, and now it's more for me related to the brand. And I'm like, now I kind of like trust the people that are in charge of this company. And that's kind of what I'm saying is like putting yourself out there builds a brand.
That's the first step.
Builds a brand. Important. What you do with it, how well your product runs, and how you're actually building your brand, like what you're saying when you're putting yourself in the spotlight, is going to be the difference between whether or not you succeed. But I think more companies if your company has a ton of awareness, I think like the biggest flop is these people not putting themselves out there, because you already have the spotlight there. You know what I mean? And I think that helps the top of the funnel for your company in major ways. It's not like you have to start a YouTube channel from zero because you have the backing of FanDuel or DraftKings. Like you'll go from 1 to 70 overnight like that, you know, and then that's how you kind of build the leverage.
Yeah. And Gary, I think, is interesting because his personal brand was the grind, right? But then he made it. And so now it's at this point where, okay, I want to buy the Jets, and that's all of a sudden becoming not a reality, but it's not out of the question, when before it was kind of like the rallying cry and, you know, why we work so hard and why people supported him.
But now he continues to make content or teaching people like what he's learned from it. You know, he doesn't go on now and just only talk about like running the business and stuff. He still stays at that level. And he still
makes time for people, and it's genuine. So I think he's done a nice job of kind of that gradual transformation. And I'm just excited. I just get excited about this stuff. And Fanatics they're the lead dog in this industry right now. And Michael Rubin is building his personal brand, but is it going to be one that feels relatable for people? Does it have to be? That's the question. Maybe it doesn't have to be. And
I
maybe
think just getting out there is putting yourself above a lot of people.
Yeah. All right. The last thing, only because we have time for it, is the Ted Lasso finale. Did you ever watch Ted Lasso?
I do. I'm not caught up to the finale, but I definitely.
I won't spoil it for you. It went through everyone said this is the worst season. Finale was great. I enjoyed it. I don't think people ever like finales. Did you see the Succession finale?
I did.
Succession's so up my alley. It's not up Hallie's. So we watched 3 episodes together like 3 years ago, and she was like, not for me. So I never really did it. But now I'm revisiting it. And
you watched it and finished it?
No. I'm like through 5 episodes. But with Lasso ending, and I thought like you'll see, if you do a Twitter search on Ted Lasso finale, the writers and the connections between the first episode all the way back to like the trailer and the initial concept of it play out. And I'm not just talking story arc. I'm talking like poster on the wall is connected to things that, you know, like deep level shit.
That shit always like blows my mind.
Blows my mind.
I'm like, how did you do that when you didn't even write the season yet? Like, yeah, it's crazy.
So I think like my thought being Succession, people are now saying top 5 TV show. Lasso, just some of the moments. And I think Lasso's not going to go down as a top TV show of all time. But in a time of need, it was like the bright spot of COVID for a lot of people. There's a writer strike right now. I'm actually not like too keen on all the specifics around it, but I know that there is a writer strike. This seems to happen in industries all the time, is there gets to a point the union, they believe they're worth more, etc. Tying this all back to creators, there's a writer strike. What do you like? Where's your head go?
I think it can become an opportunity for people who wouldn't necessarily normally get their foot in the door.
Yep.
I think about some of the fantasy industries, and I almost think, it's not the same. It's not someone leaving, someone very talented leaving for a better opportunity. It's not a strike, but it is opening the door. So I think of a company like NBC, NBC Sports, right? They're Roto World, right? They're like big in the fantasy space, at least had been for the previous 10 years. I'm not really sure what their standing is anymore, to be honest with you. I still use them. I still think they make good content, but like Evan Silva was like the face of it before he left to do Establish the Run. And then like since he left, other talent has left, and they've just continued to recycle new talent in there and like try to rebuild their content systems. And it's a lot of guys who are just kind of like coming up, but they get thrust into these spotlight roles because of the opportunity available to them. And I think of Fantasy Pros is similar, where they just, I think over the last 5 years, they've had, because Mike Taggs, tragically passed away, they've had to fill these spots, and he was like their guy, and now he leaves. They've had some other like controversy where other people have had to leave and stuff, and they have this massive platform with, whatever it is, 150, 200, 300,000 people listen per episode. You need to have talented people coming right in, but had those like juggernauts never left or whatever, those opportunities wouldn't present themselves. So I think when these opportunities strike, like that's where weird opportunities come from. And I also think about it from like sports, right? When people go into seasons, like you go into the NFL season and you're like, oh, this team is terrible. They got no depth on their cornerback, depth chart, whatever. Yeah. That's a lot of the times when like talent emerges. That's a lot of the times when people out of nowhere come through. It's like, yeah, they can go into the season because you don't know anybody. That is when the no names get the opportunity to like shine. And I think from a creator standpoint, yeah, like you should always be looking for, Ted Lasso writing and stuff is obviously a much higher scale, but I think that's kind of the overall way that I would look at it.
Yeah, it's an opportunity where you're outside of the union, so you actually have leverage all of a sudden to come in and work for free or work after hours, or it's just they need people. So if you're talented, I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. So if someone saw an opportunity in like one of our companies, and they were like, I want to do this for you, and they sent in like a piece of work or an example or something like that, that could be a much lower scale version of that. Like when Tony and Sexy starts striking, we get an editor strike. We're gonna need someone to come in.
But it is, yeah. That's the thing is you don't owe the writers on strike anything, right? So you do have to undermine them. For example, if Tony and Sexy were like, Nick, we're not editing for 2 weeks, you would either have to pay them or replace them. And so if someone said, hey, I'll come do the job for 10% less or even the same, whatever it may be.
In a second.
That's, you're offering leverage. So I think creators just have leverage in this situation. All comes back to having a personal brand. I know that any writer
I love
with a
that
personal...
you put the Ted Lasso writer strike on the show. It's out of control.
But Jason Sudeikis isn't going to have trouble finding another job because he's got a personal brand. And I would imagine any of those writers.
Remember when I said we were hiring a content creator?
Yeah.
Jason,
come through.
Jason.
All right, that's all I got.
All right, we can wrap up there. I will leave this one little nugget that I was sharing with you and Casey before. There's an awesome newsletter that I signed up to recently from this guy/company called Creator Hooks. And every Monday he sends out a newsletter highlighting 5 YouTube videos that went viral within the last few weeks. And he basically just does a really quick, vivid breakdown of the thumbnail, the title, why it worked, and how you could take that same formula in the title and use it for your industry. And I've been using it. I dropped some examples in the Discord that people thought were like really, really good. Did those within like 10 minutes. And I think it's a really, really powerful exercise to give you video ideas that are popular and work really well in other industries that are probably not being used in your industry. And it just gets you thinking creatively. So I would suggest you guys, if you're on YouTube, if you're working on titles, thumbnails, etc., sign up for the newsletter, free to sign up. I think it's every Monday.
I don't know if it's just YouTube help. I would imagine it would help with...
It's just like copywriting help, but it is specified for... This guy is like a specialist for YouTube
But
stuff.
what we were talking about was concepts. Like what comes first? You come up with the concept, then optimize the title, or do you start thinking titles and then optimize the concept? And I think it works both ways. So one example was the 5 things that have never been done in this niche. if you start to think about your niche, then you start to create things from it. And you created 17 fantasy videos out of it already. So I think that can obviously then be applied to TikTok and can be applied to all the platforms.
Well, because I think of, I like the structure of it first. So for instance, one of the ones that he put out was like, title was the 5 new commercial aircrafts that'll change the way that we travel. I'm like, kind of intriguing. So the formula was the 5 new object that will change the way we activity. So I was like the 5 new, and then for fantasy, it could be the 5 new metrics, stats, settings, or players that changed the way we played fantasy football over the last 10 years. The 5 players that changed the way we played fantasy football would be like, like Darren Sproles, Michael Vick, like guys like that were very outside of the box, but whatever. Or the 5 articles or podcasts that changed the way I played fantasy football. So it's like powerful shit that I wouldn't have thought of those like kind of titles, and it has nothing to do with it. It's just like aircrafts were the example. But if you take the structure of the title, why it's so powerful, and you put it into your industry, it works. So it's like you have the structure, and then you think of the concept. And there's multiple concepts you can use. Break down like 5 concepts. Be like, which one do I like the most? Which one would I be most passionate about working on? Which one would I do the best on? And then you can kind of like dive in from there.
Yep. All right. So
take us home.
Well, you said to subscribe right off the bat, which I appreciate. But I think you have to offer some value before you ask for people to subscribe. And you did it right off the bat. So what point in this episode do you think was the proper time to ask for people to subscribe?
What was the first thing we talked about?
It was something you brought up.
The YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I could have hit him with, after that little like 10-minute talk, being like, I know so fucking much about YouTube that you'll be so smart if you subscribe now and listen to the rest of our videos. I've done 8,000 videos. Smartest guy on YouTube. Yeah. Hiring Mr. Beast.
Yeah. I think the title for this is probably like 50 minutes of YouTube genius talking about creator economy leverage.
YouTube genius. YouTube genius teaches YouTube idiot everything he knows. You see, I like the thumbnail today. They made you broke and me poor.
I know. The reaction faces,
yeah, they're tough. They're a tough scene.
Some of them are good, but it is
Super
funny.
tough scene.
I think there's probably...
Do you hate it when I post it on Twitter and you just see your face up there like that?
I retweet it. Okay. I reshare it. And I'm going to do more resharing of this stuff because this is a brand play. It's not a conversion play. It's a brand play.
I've been making money. I just haven't been sharing it.
But it is. So, yeah, I want this to be part of my brand. I think you knew that from an early point of how it all works for you, but I think it's important to me too. So I will share more. I'll go on my list of tasks. I'm going to ascertain the thumbnail for this episode.
I just need you to do that, yeah. I can do everything else. Okay. All right. Love you.
Oh, because we were out of space.
Yeah, it just shut off after that. But we had all the audio, so you just put a picture of Derrick Henry.
Did you?
Tommy just put a picture of us, like the ending screen that we usually have. All right, so here's what we're going to do.
Do we post shorts?
I don't know, do we?
You gave me this job.
Yeah, you have. Okay, so this is how we're going to do this. You're going to be responsible for tying up the loose ends, and I'm going to be responsible for distribution.
Okay.
So you have the show sheet.
Yep.
And then you also, I want you to communicate with the thumbnail people. Because a lot of times I forget and then I don't ask them until Monday and then we don't get it till Wednesday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So after the episode, we will just make sure we have a recap of what we talked about, like 4 or 5 subjects, and send it over to them. Okay. But I'm going to put you in charge of that to get the thumbnail.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Break.
We're not starting. This is out of order, by the way. You have to, yeah. We're not starting with Lasso.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna reply to you and be like, we'll throw that at the end. Okay. If there's time.
That's actually how I wanted to do it. Yeah, I'm bummed we didn't get the episode out because I wanted to see if people think I'm an asshole.
About the McAfee stuff?
Yeah.
I doubt it. I'm more interested to see the inner monologue talk.
Oh, true.
So the first comment was like, I definitely have an inner monologue. Yeah. I definitely like talk.
I confirmed I do as well. Yeah. Laying in bed this morning.
I can't imagine that that percentage is correct.
No.
It's got to be like 2 or the 3% of people that don't have one. Makes no sense.
And it's people I don't want to know. Because they're not thinking.
Imagine that, like, you don't have thoughts in your head. Like, you literally, it just comes out as frustration. You're just like, like you just Arthur Fist all the time.